This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
It's one of those details that makes you stop mid-sentence when investigators pulled apart Bryan Kohberger's car. And I mean pulled apart. They found nothing linking him directly to the murders. No blood, no clothing, not a single shred that could put him in that Moscow house on November 13th. Kohberger and his car were described as being disassembled, that Kohberger literally disassembled the car to clean it up. Except for two things that had no business being there. That for whatever reason he thought, well, no one's going to care about that. Or did he just not think at all? 2 ID cards belonging to women who weren't his victims. At least not in the sense of homicide. 2 women who are still alive. 2 women, for all we know, have no idea their identification ended up in a glove box of a man convicted of killing 4 college students. And here's the kicker. Kohberger had taken obsessive care to clean that car. Disassembled clean. Sterile clean. Yet those IDs, they sat right there in plain sight for investigators to find. Why? Was it just sloppiness, a blind spot? Because in his mind, they weren't related to the murders? Or were they something else entirely? A form of control, a private souvenir, a piece of someone he could keep without ever touching them again. Robin Dreeke is here to help us break all that down, because when you add this to what we already know, the petty thefts in his past, the suspected break-ins, and the vengeful streak towards women who crossed him, you start to see a pattern. It's not just about murder. It's about collecting, escalating, and rehearsing. And sometimes those rehearsals leave physical evidence behind. So, let's dig into this with Robin.
The only, conjecture and me are go hand in hand sometimes. So the only thing I can really think of, so he's really good in his stovepipe of making sure he didn't have anything related to the murder out of that car. So that's why those 2 IDs, I don't think were related to the murder or anything related probably to murder in his head. But so again, what kind of things can IDs be used for? Obviously, the photos, you can use them for understanding who you might want to stalk. But if he's equating that to the same way in his head as what he just done, he would have probably removed them, or he was just stupid and forgot, which is also it's a possibility. But he tends to not do that. I'd be curious where those IDs are from, because maybe he wanted to get access to something else and he wanted to use those to understand how to get access to something. Maybe make a clone of one of those things. I don't know. There's, again, just down to conjecture, but there's a lot of things IDs could be used for.
Was it for a use,
I don't think they necessarily meant for targeting. What?
Was it for any sort of use, or was it just for a control? Was it just for feeling that control of, I got this from them? I mean, there's no reason to have anyone else's ID on your person. There's very few reasons. I can think of, like, you're going down the water slide? Okay, I'll hold on to your ID for you. I mean,
and we do know that he was not treating his female students very well at all. If they're from females, he could have literally just taken them and found them just to screw with them. Because he is vengeful. He is very vengeful, and we have data points on him being vindictive and vengeful. So it could have been just for that. Again, anytime you have an outlier of new data that comes in that just kind of spikes, there's lots of. I'm completely wide open to anything those could be, but it could just be a simple vengeful thing he did too.
I'm wondering if all of this started really early, because we know he was committing some petty crimes. He stole his sister's phone. His dad turned him in. We know all that. And there are people there in the new book that came out, the James Patterson one that talks about
Idaho 4, right?
Yeah, where it talks about him going into like a family friend. He was friends with the son and broke in or took things from the mom. The mom figured it out. Eventually, gets called on the carpet for
$20,000 worth of, if not more.
Like serious theft, but isn't turned in for it. He apologizes when he's called out eventually. and just kind of goes on his way. And she says, I don't ever want to see you again. And he's like, okay, bye. So he's doing this before. I'm just wondering, did this start, I don't want to say benign, but benign compared to an execution of 4 people, where it was smaller things he was doing? And was it for his craft of wanting to get into law enforcement? And was it to do smaller things to try and gain insight from what it would be like, the perspective of the perpetrator? And then eventually, after breaking into houses so many times and stealing ID cards and jewelry, he eventually ups the game and goes, well, I got away with this so much. How hard would it be to go in and kill somebody too, and then get that in his repertoire of his mind of experience? That's where I'm wondering on him. And it's honestly what I've been saying from the very beginning on Kohberger.
Yeah, it is an interesting question. I think at the onset, from when I looked at the timing of it, I think the original thefts he was doing, and I think it was, again, it's hard to, I'm having a hard time placing exactly what Patterson had found out in his book. But in other words, a lot of his thefts he was doing, actually, I think, was giving him the cash he needed to get drugs. So
Sure.
A lot of it was drug related stuff. And so that's part of that arc of him getting reps earlier on. But that kind of goes to a question I've been asking myself a lot about him, and that's the motivation. I had theorized, and some others had too, that when you're dealing with Kohberger and him talking about having no emotions and having that visual snow and all the things that go along with psychopathy, which is that no emotional effect for anything, of him upping the sensations of what he was doing to get some sort of emotional response to something, kind of like, we saw that emotional response. He was doing a selfie in the shower afterwards as his trophy, or a theorized trophy. And then, so you have that aspect of it as a potential motivation. But then when I started thinking more about this Ramsland thing and the grandiosity of it, I don't think they're necessarily, independent. They could be definitely together on this. There's also the possibility that he wasn't out to actually, in other words, murder and the emotion behind the murder might not have been the pure motivation. It could also have been the grandiosity of being better than these other serial killers. It just happens to be you have to murder someone in order to get that kind of attention. Because that's what made me think about that was his incessant hand washing and showering he was doing and reported to have done. That is, it's interesting. It's just one data point, and I've seen that behavior with others before that have done something or been part. Like you see it with people that have done things that they have shame over. Again, I didn't do a deeper research on this to update my knowledge base on this, but I've seen it from people that are suffering, having done something, been part of something that they just want to get the memory off of them, so they actually become neurotic like that. Look, so I'm just really curious about that whole thing. It's a common
human thing to do. I mean, honestly, like I can tell you, and I've seen it, and I've talked to many people where after a breakup, after something really big that's happened and has come to a close, and not necessarily that you feel shame over, but you feel, a sense of change, a sense of loss. I can guarantee the best times I've cleaned my pantry and really narrowed it down was after a breakup. Where you just, for whatever reason, there's just like, there's something about going and cleaning and refreshing things that helps. But I wonder, but the thing is with something like this, it's Kohberger, so we're on a totally different level. He's in the prison, he's in jail, and he's washed. It's not like you're like going to get some extra blood off your hands that they're going to find. Like
it's not that. It's a psychological thing, and that's why I'd be curious about his patterns, if he did that before he did the murders or after, because again, the just having an effect. In other words, I'm curious if doing those actual murders had a positive effect he was looking for, a negative effect, because that kind of then goes into my mind. Was it more for the Ramsland attention or not? Again, tons of ideas thrown through my head on this one, because there's so many different little nuggets that are coming out that are kind of constantly building and shifting this thing around. But going to the original thing we're talking about, the probability of him having secreted the murder weapon and maybe even the clothes into a hidey hole, I think we have a decent probability of that.
I do too. Back to the cards, though. Was that just a dumb mistake on his part that he left those damn things there? You disassemble the car and you leave possible evidence. I mean, not of this crime, but they're going to wonder what the hell you got this for. I mean, is that just a, oh shit, like I didn't touch the glove box during any of this. I've cleaned everything that I possibly could have touched and just forgot?
I think it's both. I think it's him being stupid because he has a lot of stupid in him, as well as unrelated to this.
Yeah, very narrow shift in thinking. Like that's a different thing.
He's very narrow. He's very narrow in his focus.
That makes a little more sense, I think, when you think of it that way, of why that would be there. And it's just so foolish at the same time. He thinks he's this genius over here, and like, look, the obvious is right there. It's like leaving the sheath. Like, you did everything good, but
I'm not liking. A lot of people said he was so smart or all these different.
I don't
things.
agree with that.
Neither do I. I think he's an idiot.
Socially, completely. I mean, was he? I think he's like a lot of people where I do think he could pass an IQ test with a pretty high score. But that doesn't necessarily mean socially he's very smart on how to handle anything. I'm gonna
say he's only gonna be average. And
really?
Here's why, Tony. Yeah, because he did not execute all this information in his head at a high level.
But I don't think people with high IQs do that because they're operating in a different zone. And when you actually apply it to the real world, it doesn't apply unless everything is within their own control, which clearly with this, it was not.
But I think he has the appearance of a high IQ to some only because he doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
So I've known a lot of people. I went to the United States Naval Academy. I was surrounded by extremely brilliant people. Mm-hmm. And I also witnessed people that weren't as brilliant, but all of a sudden were able to do very, very well academically because they put in a lot of time and effort and energy into doing X, Y, and Z. And when you look at Kohberger, he put in a lot of time, effort, and energy into X, Y, and Z of what he was doing. So I don't think, to me, just seeing reps from other really, really brilliant people I've seen in my life, because not being on the low end of it, he strikes me as someone that just put in a lot of time, energy, and effort that others weren't willing to do that might have been more intelligent and more talented. Because, I mean, just look at the people that he was studying. Mm-hmm. All of them did a much better job than he did.
That's true. No, that's very true.
So because he has... I guess I'm equating emotional intelligence. Obviously, he's got 0 to IQ as well, which they're different.
Which you can be really strong. If you're really strong on one, you're probably not really strong on the other. He
has zero EQ, 0 emotional intelligence, and I think he only strikes me as moderate on IQ. And again, it's effort level that I think really got him to notice it. Because I mean, who is into this kind of stuff as much as a degree and actually had the bandwidth to dedicate it? So again, boy, I love stuff that just pops in our mind as we're going. So all other people that he's studying with, they all have something he doesn't. Social life. Mm-hmm. Social life takes up a lot of bandwidth from normal human beings. And so when you're a professor and you're looking at your pool of students and you're looking at grades, you're looking at effort, and you're looking at all these things, who's going to stand out as being exceptional? The one that is dedicating 100% of all the energy and everything they're doing to the craft that the professors there are caring about. Meanwhile, all these other students can be very, very good students, but they actually have life that is actually infiltrating into their performance. I know this because, I have 2 kids that are very into what they do, and they're talented and exceptional. At the same time, though, they're able to excel because their bandwidth allows them to excel because they're focusing on their craft and not on the chaos that other people are focused on. So I really think he didn't strike me as anything great. He struck me as someone that emulated a lot of people and just think about this. He put so much time and energy into what he was doing. You think he'd be better at it.
You would. He's someone who I think, like many of us do, though. I mean, I identify with what we do or our craft as part of, who we are, a very big part, more than just, I do this and my whole life is over here. Sometimes it's very intertwined. I feel like he found worth, because I think it was one of the few things in his life that actually you know, he was somewhat good at compared to others, but obviously not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
And validated for it. You know, when you have a professor saying you're doing well, doesn't matter how good or bad you are at something. I mean, how many of us at a young age, because that becomes part of our life arc, we pursue things. I mean, Tony, you're a great example. You fell in love with doing radio and doing this kind of work at a young age of 14 because
no, actually two, but
see what I mean?
On the air, officially on the air, but I've been talking to a mic since 2.
Spark and inspiration all those years ago. And so because someone along the way, a situation probably validated you that you're good at it. And so when someone gives you that kind of affirmation that it allows you to feel safe, allows you to feel valued, you're going to get the reps in because those reps become rewarding to you, both from the outer and the inner. And so when he was rewarded finally for the first time in his life for studying after he overcame drugs, after he got in shape and he lost the weight, he's going to now follow that arc of criminology, and he's going to do it obviously in an extremely unhealthy way in the end. So I think that became part of that arc, as you were just talking about.
When you strip away the noise, those 2 ID cards become something more than a bizarre oversight. They're a snapshot of who Bryan Kohberger is. Someone who could obsess over and over about cleaning every inch of his car, yet leave behind a pair of trophies he didn't think of as trophies, or completely forgot were in his glove box. Someone capable of compartmentalizing to the point of blindness. Robin's point about stovepiping is key here. The idea that in Kohberger's mind, these cards had nothing to do with the Idaho murders, so they didn't trigger the same hyper-cleaning reflex. That alone tells us how narrow his operational focus could be, even when he believed himself to be meticulous. It's the same kind of thinking that might let him walk into a crime scene with a knife, but no clear plan for leaving without a sheath. Because, as Olivia Gonzalez described him, he's a wannabe. He's not quite there to the killers he wants to emulate and so looks up to. He's just a pathetic wannabe. It also opens the door to something more disturbing. If these IDs weren't part of the murders we know about, what were they part of? Were they taken in one of those suspected break-ins we've heard about? Were they spoils from petty harassment? A way to rattle someone without them even knowing what they meant and make them feel uneasy? Or were they simply the physical echo of a long-standing compulsion to take and keep pieces of other people's lives? The escalation theory is hard to ignore. Start with the stealing from friends, family, or strangers and the thrill of not getting caught. Layer on a growing interest in criminology and law enforcement. And before long, the line between practice and performance starts to blur. The IDs, like so many small acts along that path, could be both rehearsal and reward. What makes it so unsettling is that, unlike the knife, these cards weren't hidden in a park or buried under a tree stump. They were right there in the car he drove every day. Maybe it was arrogance, maybe it was forgetfulness, or maybe, and this is the part that lingers, he wanted them close. And if that's the case, then those 2 pieces of plastic are as much a part of the psychological profile as any court transcript or witness statement. They speak to control, to ego, and to the kind of self-justifying blindness that, in the end, may have been one of the biggest cracks in the image he tried so hard to protect. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments section on YouTube. If you're not already there, just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. You will find us there on YouTube. And be sure to press subscribe. Also hit subscribe if you're downloading and listening to us on the podcast platform, wherever that may be. You can do the same search and find us there so you don't miss any of the reporting that we bring to you here at True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Until next time, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.